that childish self-preoccupation. My life is not about protecting myself. It's about becoming a warrior, or soften the image a little bit, becoming an athlete, someone who's able to enter the arena. I like that term. Can you get in here? Can you get in and fight the good fight? Do you have what it takes? Have you submitted yourself to a spiritual master, to a discipline? A nice spirituality is not going to do this for us. And we might feel good about ourselves, but at the end of the day, who cares? Spiritual life is not about feeling good about yourself. It's about becoming an instrument in the hands of Christ. So can you be shaped under His tutelage for service? So that's what spiritual athleticism is all about.
We must keep on doing what we are doing with, I guess, the tragedy of the 20th century, and that was the sex abuse crisis. We must keep working on that to ensure people of their protection in the church. That's a kind of what I call a technical thing, but it's so important that the church must be to the forefront in the protection of people when it comes to something like this. It must be. We must develop the most significant spiritual program that brings healing to people, especially those who've been hurt, and that they're convinced of their absolution and freedom from this hurt, and that the church freely gives them all that they need to be healed, even though in that healing they may carry hurt for the rest of their lives, which is the tragedy of this type of sin, But there's no reason why ever that they cannot be healed and be fully members of the church, because there are so many who are healed by their own, not taking away anything from their hurt, which was none of their fault. But the joy of the sacraments and the joy of the healing of the Eucharist and confession will cure all hurts. And they're given to us by Christ. And we must use them to their fullest. They're His gifts to us. Peace be with you.
Who says that yeah.
How do we receive him in this new way? Well, the prophet Joel is crying out to the people to get them to be able to turn to God. We see that throughout salvation history. You know, from the time of the beginning of existence, where God is calling his people back to him. And the prophets are a real example of that for us. So Prophet Joel is saying, return to me with your whole heart. Rend your hearts, not your garments, and return to the Lord your God.
Production of a medieval piece,
Okay.
and they couldn't afford them because they had to be done on vellum.
Yeah.
So what they would do for the choir is they had sheets like this. They did Mexico,
Yeah.
wildfire, because it spoke to the people. My mom thought I was the lost cause for a while.
Really? Oh. Scatter joy. I like that.
The
Also, I like that Catholics drink alcohol.
Yes, I do. You know, I had a really good friend, my best friend in high school. She was Baptist. And I thought it was so funny because when her minister would come over.
Because of the idea of prayer being more intellectual, So there was no question of the contemplative thing, really, honestly. And people came along like Thomas Merton, right? And people like that, who, like he said, what happened with him once, he said he was just sitting there, and all of a sudden it felt as though a trap door had opened beneath his feet, and he fell into infinity. And that's contemplation. So he began to pursue that whole thing. So he brought that more into the attention of the Catholic population. Okay? But before that, it wasn't. And so the result was very tragic because the prayer life and spirituality was external. You know, I go to Mass, which is beautiful. I go to this, I do that, but it was very devotional. But as a result, the image of God was never fully awoken within people. Because that presupposed, we see something like the Jesus prayer, if that had persisted, then people today would be contemplatives. But since there was nothing, Jesus' prayer was somewhere lost. And so as a result, people just became very rule-bound. You know, I have these obligations in the church, and a penalty is attached to it. But in Vatican II, it was stated very clearly that no human being has the right to make a rule such as eating meat on Friday is a mortal sin if you consent to it. You just can't set up a rule and then give as a penalty the loss of your everlasting soul in eternity. You know, you just can't do that. And so, but that's what people very preoccupied with, the details of being good and so forth and so on. But the interior life suffered. Yeah. And now it's being revived to some extent. I say from some extent because it's not really, you need men and women who have experienced, are experiencing the depths of the contemplative life. You know? They're not around much, you know, very few. And so there's an old saying in Latin, nemo dat quod non habet. No one gives what he does not have. So I was in a seminary about 3 years ago, a Benedictine monastery. It was also a seminary for the entire southeast of the United States, and there were 119 seminarians. That's a lot. And a monk who had been with us here as a novice left, and he went to that monastery. So when he entered the monastery, they said, "We want you to teach a course on prayer." He said, "Prayer? How long have you been here?" And the monk said, 53 years. And I just spent 6 months in the monastery. You want me to? Oh, yes, because you came from a Trappist monastery. So he was bewildered. He said, okay, I can teach him options in prayer. I mean, there's Jesus prayer, and there's this, and this. Okay. So the monk said, well, we'll make an elective. You know, you can choose whether to go to the course or not. So out of 119, 4 people signed up. 4 out of 119. There was no sense of prayer other than external. So, you know, they would recite the divine office externally, but go at a very rapid speed, you know, at the seminary. So there wasn't really an openness to various kinds of interior prayer. And so you have that going on all over the country, you know. So if you don't have anybody to pass on the contemplative reality, it doesn't happen.
And I wake up the next morning and somebody's after me. Now, a lot of this sort of thing happens with me. Somebody's after me, and I got to get out of this room. I get out of bed, I'm rounding the end of the bed. It's like a broken leg beggar is clutching at me. And and I'm not seeing anything. This is all being felt in imagination, not seeing anything. But it's so real that I want to turn and say, what the hell do you want? But I knew who it was, and I knew what he wanted. It was the Lord, and he wanted me. So I wound up, instead of getting to the bathroom, where I don't know what I would have done when I got there, but anyway, I wind up on my knees at the end of the bed, weeping. Poor Ida, because that was the hardest part. But I thought at the time that what I was being asked to do was to become a priest, and underneath all of this is a wish to correct a face of God that seems to me to get into almost everybody, including the Catholics listening to the Catholic priests. A face of God as a banker God, a a vengeful God, a God who you don't, as one person, you don't mess with God. And that's a little too anthropomorphic. And especially, we have to be anthropomorphic. It has to be something we've seen and experienced and understood. And we don't say that about him. So it's underneath. But we're pretty sure that you don't mess with God or he'll get you. You know? You don't mess with infinite love, you know, who will pursue you till he gets you. Now, that's a little heresy of mine. My life is hugely beautiful, and at the same time, in human eyes, I think it's insignificant.